I had a class my freshman year that really looked at how people get to think and believe what they think and believe. And that really struck a chord with me because so often, I mean, nowadays, this is a very hot topic, right? So many times we look at people and think, how could you ever think that way? How could you believe that what someone else is saying? But the truth is that everyone has their reasonings. They've been brought up in a certain way. They've had their own lived experience in a certain way. Their world and life has been shaped. And if we don't understand how people get to think in a certain way, then we'll never understand or be able to have, good conversations about how to come together. And I think when you're younger, you're trying to get a job, you're trying to manage your life, you're trying to save some money, you're trying to do all these different things and still kind of be young. And then there's a moment that you realize your career is on a path and it's going to keep going on that path unless you sort of decide what you really want. And deciding that I wanted to try to find an agency that really focused on nonprofits and kind of work for good became a little bit of a passion for me. And so when I moved back to Boston, I really only applied to Argus. I found Argus through a friend. I really only applied there, and they didn't really have a job opening for me. So I went and applied for a much more junior position and then spent a full day trying to convince the owners that I was the right person for them.
Because what we do at Your Best Mind, that's one of the key things that we do, is we help people understand how the imprint, their brain print, as I like to call it, their brain DNA code, is so unique to them. And it's this combination of that DNA code and then culture and how they were raised and all of that. And it really does, it helps us so much better to understand other individuals better, right? To get along with them more, to take the tension off of situations. If they disagree with us or they have an opposing view, it doesn't necessarily mean they're wrong and I'm right. Oftentimes it just means different perspectives. The way you look at things are different.
There's going to be sacrifices no matter what decision you make. There's benefits and sacrifices to every single decision you make. I knew when I was given, there was an opening for me to step into more leadership of this company about 7 years ago. I also knew I wanted to have a second child. Those things happened really at pretty much the exact same time. And it was really tough. And I had to make some sacrifices in terms of maternity leave and how much time I was spending at home. At the same time, I knew that the other sacrifice was to give up this moment. And so, there's always going to be benefits and sacrifices that you have to make in terms of how much money you can make, how much time you can spend with family, how much, how many hobbies you can have outside of work. And so it's just about making those decisions a little bit more intentionally than just letting them happen. And our tagline used to be, we sell good, not goods. So we really don't sell a lot of products, right? So we really take marketing and apply it to social issues more. And so the behavior change, for instance, we did a campaign around seatbelt use, and seatbelt use is really high, except for this very small subset of people. And that was men who drive pickup trucks or men who drive trucks. And that was a very, very low percentage of that group were wearing their seatbelts. And so it's the law in Massachusetts. That wasn't changing anything. It's obviously safer. That wasn't changing anything. And what we found was that they buckled up mostly when their moms were in the car, not their wives, not their girlfriends, but if their daughters or moms were in the car, then they would buckle up. So we created a campaign around Love Your Mom, Buckle Up, and actually worked with truck drivers in Massachusetts and kind of paid people to put decals on their cars, because it was sort of like, I'm doing this, now will you do this? And it had a huge behavior change increase in terms of the amount of seatbelts that were being used during that time period. There were a few things that really helped me. One was when I was very, very pregnant with my first, I happened to run into this woman who I used to babysit for when I was little. And I remember thinking when I was, a teenager, oh, she has such a cool job. I knew she had an important job. I knew that she had a big job. I didn't know what it was at the time. I do now, but I didn't know what it was at the time. But I bumped into her and I was clearly very pregnant. And she said, you are going to need time is going to be your biggest, the thing that you care about most. And so you need to be careful with that time. You need to outsource where you can, and you need to outsource where you don't think it's important. There was somebody else who had a similar role to me at this big meeting, and he was a few years older and he was a man, and he kept saying things. And every time he said it, I thought, I thought that. I should have said that. I could have said that. And so I started to play a little game with myself, which was when you have a thought, say it out loud. Because so often as women, we think so much about whether it's the right thing to say, how we're going to say it. And there's so much in just practice. There's so much in just doing. This idea of whether you're scared, you can still do it. You know, it's more about courage than confidence. And so this idea that just kind of put yourself out there over and over again, because the first few times maybe clunky, but you're going to learn a lot more from doing it than you are from just sitting there thinking or writing down what your ideas are.